Whitewall tyres, not everyone's cup of tea, but I've had these flappy inserts on this car for around about 35 years now, and without it, the car just looks a little odd. But now these inserts are starting to look a little tired. Sorry about that. We've got discoloration, cracking around the edges, and as I'm driving, they really are starting to flap. So what are my options? Whitewall tyres are not available in these sizes, so it's either back to a new set of the flappy inserts, or I have a go at painting the white walls myself. Now, I did try this a few years ago with disastrous results, but I think the key was in the preparation, or lack of. So I'm going to give it another go. Let's see how I get on. Now I'm going to start off using my spare tyre. Now this is a perfectly serviceable tyre. In fact, it was on the car at some point, and you can still see the outline where the flappy insert once was. It's going to give me a good opportunity to practice just to see how I get on. Now I'm going to start by giving everything a really good clean up. Now that's going to be a pre-wash foam, a jet wash, a hand wash, and I'm going to finish it off with some white spirit just to make sure I've got everything really clean. Okay, so I'm going to leave that to dry, and then once it's dried, I shall give it a wipe with the white spirit. So everything's now had the opportunity to dry, including the white spirit that I've put around it. I've also masked around the rim as well, just to protect that. Now I have marked 2 inches all the way around the edge of the tyre and put a little scribe around it, because that's the thickness of the white wall that I want to put onto it. Now it's suggested that I mask around that boundary, but I'm a bit worried I'm not going to get the curve. So I don't know whether that's better or whether to try the freehand. We'll have to see how it goes. Again, like I said, this is the spare and the practice run. Next job now is to rub down this area with 120 grit paper. So that's the rubbing down complete now. And a couple of things. The first was that the lettering that was around the side was quite raised, and there were some other marks on there as well. So I ended up using a much higher grade paper just to get that surface down, get those raised areas back down again. And then I finished off, I ended up using 180 grade to finish that off. Now, obviously, by rubbing it down, I've lost my 2-inch mark that goes all the way around the outside. And if I try and remark it, it doesn't do anything. So I think before it was just putting a mark into the sort of shiny surface of the rubber. So it looks like I'm going to have to slowly and painstakingly put some masking tape around the tyre at my 2-inch mark. So let's get on and do that. So the masking just was not working for me at all. I could not get a smooth curve there. Partly I'm a bit impatient anyway, but it wasn't a good edge. So I'm going back to the thought process that I can get a clean edge with the paintbrush. Might be a mistake, I'll have to wait and see. So what I've actually done is I have raided my son's geometry set and pinched a pair of compasses, and I have gone around, set them to 2 inches, gone around and put a pencil mark around there. So the next thing now is to apply the first coat. Now the idea is we apply this in 3 thin layers. So let's get on with the first one. So the paint I'm going to be using is not the same as I used last time, which really did not stay on the tyres very long. This is a new one. It is Whitewall tyre paint by Mr. Whitewalls. So I'm going to give it a go. Say the instructions say 3 thin coats. If this fails, then I'm going to be paying a visit to Mr. Whitewall and get him to do this for me. But I've got to give this a go first myself. Okay, there's the first coat on. Got to leave it for about an hour, then we can start applying the second coat. Indoors for the second coat, and a different paintbrush. Might be a bit wide, but it's fine. So let's see how we get on with that. There's our second coat on. So now we've just got to leave it another hour, and then we can come and put that third and final coat on. But it's starting to take shape. So here we have the finished wheel with the 3 coats of paint on it. Now I'm kind of glad that I had a practice run on the spare, because a couple of things. Firstly, I've done the 3 coats as suggested. It's still a little bit tacky, but I think it's going to stay tacky for a couple of weeks anyway. It's not a solid white. It's still, I can still see black grinning through. So I'm not sure if 3 coats is enough, or maybe I was going too thin with the coats. My cutting in, as I like to say, I'm usually quite fussy with that with my decorating, and I'm normally quite good. However, trying to follow that pencil line quite clearly has not worked in this instance. The line is a little uneven, and it has definitely gone outside of the 2 inches that I was trying to get to. I'm not going to do anything more with this as it sits at the moment. What I am going to do is I'm going to pop it onto the car and I'm going to take it out for a test drive tomorrow. The problem I had with the last paint is after the first drive, it just started flaking off. Now, I've done a lot more prep on this one than I did the last time round, so I'm kind of hoping that we're going to have better results. But I think let's get this one on before I go any further. Let's take it for a test drive and let's see how the paint reacts to being out on the road with the pressure and the weight of the car on the tyre and the flex that the tyre is going to do during that drive. So that looks to have been a successful test drive. There's no cracking, no peeling. The paint has stayed exactly as I put it on. So I am confident that the preparation and the paint itself is good to start applying to the actual tyres that sit on the car day to day. I'm going to obviously have to have a look at the thickness of the paint that's going on because it was a little bit thin in areas. And I'm also going to have a go at different ways, perhaps masking. I'm going to have another go at masking to make sure that I keep that 2 inch all the way around. And so onto my latest attempt. Now, this one was rubbed down. I must have spent an hour and a half rubbing this down. I can still see the lettering kind of grinning through. So don't underestimate how long this takes to actually get a smooth sidewall. Because of this, there's a lot of detail on this particular tyre. There's sort of stripes coming out. There's a bit of cross hatching on it as well. And I haven't got all of that perfectly out. So where I've masked, some of the paint has started to sort of grin through between the joins in those grooves. So not a perfect edge again. Standing back, looking at it, it does look pretty good. Like I say, you can still see the lettering if you're looking up close. So it probably needs quite a bit more prep. So now I'm moving on to the front tyre. It's a different manufacturer. And once again, I've got a lot of lettering all the way around. This one's particularly large lettering, and it's taking a lot of effort to try and get rid of that. I think if I was brave, I could probably use something a bit more abrasive than what I'm using. But to be honest, I'm really worried about damaging the sidewall. So it's going to be slow and steady. Again, I've got patterning around the side. It's not quite as detailed as this one, so in that sense should be easier. But this lettering is solid and they're big as well. So let's see how we get on with this one. Because the lettering on this tyre was so raised and so large, it was taking a long time, and I ended up resorting to quite a coarse P60 paper. It took quite an effort to get that down level with the tyre sidewall. Several attempts. In the end, I was just resorting to sort of 15 minutes to half an hour and intervals, and just doing it over a period of time, and then finishing it off with the 120. The extra time I've spent was worth it because I think that overall the tyre wall is much smoother. You can still see some of the lettering, but it's a lot better than the last tyre. To finish off, I masked it in the same way, and instead of using a paintbrush, I thought I'd use one of these sponge brushes to try and reduce the paintbrush marks. Right, let's peel this tape off and see how it looks. Well, we've now got 4 completed tyres, and I've got to say that bottle was just the right size for 4 tyres, a 2-inch Whitewall, and 3 to 4 coats on each. Now, obviously, I need to order up another bottle because I'd started on the spare. I'm now 1 tyre short. So just to recap on the process itself, I found a good coarse paper was essential just to get the raised lettering and any bumps out of that tyre. Then just to finish it all off with a slightly smoother one. Don't forget to wear a mask. You really don't want to be breathing that lot in, I can tell you. Now remember, the tyre walls are probably only 4 to 5 millimetres thick, so you don't want to be taking too much off of them. Now these front tyres must have taken me over 2 hours each just to prepare, but I did find doing it in smaller chunks and hoovering in between as well kept the tyre wall cooler, and therefore the results seem to be a lot better. But don't underestimate how much time this prep takes. Now the paint itself was fantastic, and I can recommend it for what I've done so far. It went on and stayed on for these initial drives really well, but I will do another video a bit further down the line once I've got some mileage on the car, and let's just see how the paint has performed and see if there are any downsides. But for now, it's really nice to get that flapping sound as I'm driving along completely gone. Now I will have to get all 5 tyres rebalanced as I have messed around with the sidewall, but I will take that opportunity also to get the tracking done, as in a previous video I had adjusted the front suspension height as well, so it'd be good to get everything balanced and aligned. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe, as it really helps the channel. But until next time, thanks very much for watching. Cheerio.